So really happy to have more members. And real quickly, we meet every third Friday of the month at 1:30 in the afternoon, if anyone's interested in joining or even just coming to a meeting or two. The last meeting, we talked about the NAACP environmental survey that we were funded to conduct by national or by state NAACP. So we'll be going over the results of that, and we'll be sharing that after we do the numbers crunching. We also talked about the renovation of Martin Luther King Jr. Park in South Park, which is going to happen in the next 2 years. There's $5.4 million that's been allocated to the city. So I don't know how much will be involved, but I did complete their survey and did send a message to the city planner to see if we could contribute some ideas. And we'll be talking about water quality as time goes on, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Kason Grady. He's a supervising engineer of enforcement for the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, which is a state agency located here in Santa Rosa. And the board oversees the quality of our water. So it's good to know that they're local and we're connected with them. The North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board does have a racial equity policy. And so we appreciate how important that is for us, especially when we are concerned with environmental justice regarding marginalized communities, ensuring that they have clean water, good water quality as time goes on. So I'm introducing Kason to you. And Kason, thanks so much for taking time to come tonight.
Well, thank you actually for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. And I also just really appreciate and respect all the work that NAACP is doing and has done to advance equity and environmental justice. And just happy to be here. I do have a couple logistical questions first. Previously, I wasn't able to share. Okay, I can share now. This is great.
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So let me share my screen, and then I will hopefully be able to get this. And then F5, does that work? Oh, unfortunately,
Go
slideshow.
to slideshow and then set up slide if you want to do it differently for
Is that good?
Now we can see it, yeah.
Yeah, I have this bar at the top of my screen that's kind of preventing me from clicking all the buttons. So I'm just kind of getting oriented. My next question is, how much time do I have?
About 25 minutes.
Okay, that should be plenty. All right, well, as Gail said, I'm Kason Grady, and I engineer. I work for the Water Board and have for the last 17 years. So I just want to do a quick introduction, and then I'll dive into my presentation. So I'll elaborate in the presentation on what are the water boards. Oftentimes we get this question of like, oh, you're in water, or are you with the city, the county, or the state? And so it can be a little bit confusing there. And so I'll elaborate further, but we are a local branch of a state agency, and we're tasked with protecting the quality of the source of our drinking water, not the drinking water itself, but the source of it. And that's so all the rivers, lakes, streams, groundwater, and the ocean. And we're tasked with protecting that for everybody. And we acknowledge that communities of color and low-income communities disproportionately lack access to clean water, are impacted by environmental pollution, and are oftentimes disenfranchised from investments in water infrastructure and even the political process. There's many examples of that nationally, from Jackson, Mississippi to Flint, Michigan, and many others. But even here in the North Coast, there's examples, and we endeavor to advance equity and try to get to a point where these inequalities and these disproportionate impacts no longer exist. So in acknowledging that, we are in the process right now of developing a racial equity action plan where we can take these concepts that we all can agree on, but how can we make them tangible for our agency? What kind of actions can we take to change the material conditions for everyone in your community and the various communities that we're trying to connect with? So it's in light of that I'm here today hoping to build some relationships between your organization and the Water Board. So with that said, I'll dive right into the presentation. So just real quickly about me, I Northern California, born and raised, went to engineering school, and shortly after graduation, a couple jobs I landed in and have worked in the North Coast Water Board ever since. And I've worked in various different programs, from enforcement to wastewater to stormwater and agriculture. And so I currently oversee an enforcement unit and 2 agricultural permitting units. So I do both the permitting and enforcement side of things. And so our agricultural programs include regulation of cannabis cultivation, dairies, irrigated agriculture, vineyards, and lily bulbs. And the last 2 we're currently in the process of developing those regs. So there's opportunities for community engagement. So I would just want to orient you as to who are the water boards. Again, we're not local in the local sense of like, we're not the local municipality that provides your water. We are part of the California Environmental Protection Agency in the Office of the Governor, and there are 6 different EPA agencies or offices. There's the Air Board, CalRecycle, Department of Pesticide Regulation, Department of Toxic Substances and Control, and then OEHA, which is the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, and then there's the water boards where I work. And for your orientation, our office is in Santa Rosa, up by the airport, in the business park there. So here's our mission statement. This is statewide, and I'll just read it because I think it's really powerful, and it's one of the reasons why I've stayed working here for so long. And that is to preserve, enhance, and restore the quality of California's water resources and drinking water for the protection of the environment, public health, and all beneficial uses. And I've bolded that because I'll come back to it. And to ensure the proper resource allocation and efficient use. And there's another piece here that's really important: for the benefit of present and future generations. So that's a really, really high task. And it's something that I think all of my colleagues really are proud to get behind. We are in the North Coast. Our office is at the very southern portion of our region, and it goes all the way to Oregon along the coast, and then it goes inland and around Mount Shasta, primarily due to the Klamath River and the Lost River Basin. The region is delineated by watershed boundaries, so it's really everything that drains to the ocean along the North Coast. But there are 9 regional water boards as shown here, and there's also a state board, State Water Resources Control Board, and they set regulation and policy for the entire state, where the 9 regional boards deal with policy, regulation, enforcement, etc., in their geographic boundaries. And being a state agency, we have a board that oversees our work and makes decisions. It's appointed by the governor. There are 7 spots. 6 seats are filled right now, and there's 1 vacancy. And I've mentioned it briefly, and I'll just say it here. So what we do is we protect water quality for all water bodies and all people. And so we identify water quality problems, and we develop and implement plans and policies to address those. We issue permits and then enforce water quality laws and regulations. There are two main laws and regulations that we do enforce, and that is the Federal Clean Water Act, where we are delegated authority to implement that. And there's also the California Water Code that we implement. And so in addition to those kind of regulatory enforcement functions, we also support projects, and we are a funding agency. And so there's opportunities to direct funding to whether it be a municipality or other community to do monitoring or for water infrastructure. So within those tasks, we have a planning function, we have a permitting function, enforcement, and funding. I've already kind of gone over that. I'll just point out, I have some listed permitting things that we do, but again, the mission is so large that it's any human activity on the landscape that could impact our water is something that we are tasked with overseeing. And so even sediment can be a pollutant in this context. In fact, given the history of deforestation and clear cutting in the North Coast, most of our water bodies are impaired for sediment. And so it's one of kind of the biggest issues that we deal with. So narrowing in from the statewide mission statement, now we're here at the North Coast vision statement. And this is something developed by our staff. We had some meetings around this, and we came up with this almost a haiku: healthy watersheds, effective regulation, and strong partnerships. So here today, it's my hope to help develop a strong partnership with NAACP, and through the process, hopefully get more effective regulations that are more inclusive to the needs of people of color in our community. So we'll move on. And I bolded in our mission statement beneficial uses, and I just want to point out this is a way of just reiterating the fact that we protect water for anything that could happen, right? And so in 1972, they established the different beneficial uses of water. So we have municipal domestic supply, agriculture is its own beneficial use, same thing for like providing water for industrial processes. But then there's more environmental ones, like groundwater recharge is its own benefit. So that we don't overdraw our aquifers. Floodwater protection is a similar beneficial use. And we have the classic ones, Rec 1 and Rec 2, are contact and non-contact water recreation. So really the ability to go swimming in our rivers or kayaking and canoeing. These are things that weren't always available, and frankly are still not all available in all places. And the same thing goes with drinking. The municipal supply. The Clean Water Act was originally established because I think the Cuyahoga River lit on fire, and you couldn't swim in that, and you couldn't drink out of it, right? And so we're here to try to protect those, including habitat for fish. Salmonids are kind of indicator species, or like they're our panda, and so we really oftentimes protecting for cold water fish habitat is oftentimes the most sensitive beneficial use that we can protect for. And then we also have Native American culture and subsistence fishing. So there's more that aren't on here, but I just wanted to give you a sense of all the things that we are tasked with protecting for. So in 2021 and 2023, the water boards adopted a couple different racial equity resolutions. 2021 was statewide, and the state board resolution directed each region to, didn't direct, but encouraged, I guess, each region to adopt their own resolution. So we did that in 2023 in February. And ever since, we've been working on drafting our action plan, developing a strategy and a plan for community outreach and engagement. And that's where we are now. So our ultimate goal is to equitably implement our mission for the communities we serve. And here's some intended outcomes: that race is not a predictor of a person's access to the quality of beneficial uses, effectively to water quality, and that race is not a predictor of the professional outcomes for our staff in our office. And then ultimately we consistently apply a racial equity lens to our work and decisions. So this is a priority for us because we recognize that race is a predictor, and that's a problem. And that government has a role and a responsibility. We clearly have a role given our mission, but I think government more broadly has a responsibility given all the impacts that it has caused in the past, and frankly continues to perpetuate. So, and I think it's worth acknowledging that we currently do not reflect our community. Diversity in our organization is a problem, and we're endeavoring to address that. We're currently, I would say, a predominantly white institution, and that varies throughout the state. But that is something that we're hoping to include actions that we can address each of these in our action plan. And we recognize that our mission can't be achieved if regulations or procedures exist that continue to reinforce these inequities. And so we want to address those regulations and address those processes. And this is maybe repetitive, but yeah, race is a determinant of racial and environmental inequities, and that is really, I think, one of our primary goals is how can we intervene and change that. And so our resolution specifically acknowledges that white supremacy as a system of exploitation and oppression, and it specifically acknowledges our role in addressing that. And the resolution condemns acts of racism, xenophobia, bigotry, white supremacy. And here's some commitments: making DEI and environmental justice central and core values, acknowledging that these issues are intersectional with climate change. And so we were tasked with developing a climate change resolution, in particular to address the disproportionate impacts on people of color. And it reaffirms our commitment for the protection of public health for all communities, upholding the California's human right to water law. And then we have our own resolution to support that. So currently the resolution has directed us to develop strategies. These are all effectively included in the action plan to meaningfully engage with communities of color, to meet people in their spaces. And this is why I am coming to you. I hope to get invited more. I want to get off my soapbox and maybe do some Q&A, but I'm interested in meeting you in this space or in any other space that you'd be interested. I'd like to take any one of you out to coffee and see how we can continue to build relationships. And we want to address barriers to public participation. It is the communities that attend our board meetings are predominantly white, and I would love to see more diverse participation in our board meetings, but I also recognize that there are barriers to that. Currently, we have our board meetings during the day, midweek, and that poses barriers to working families. And so we're thinking about having evening meetings or weekend meetings and other things like that. And so I already mentioned developing and ensuring that we have a racially equitable and diverse workforce. So we're working on developing strategies for that. And I put a slide here. I didn't mean to have those each one click in. I just wanted to show that I saw that NAACP has a clean water issue brief, and I was just so pleased at the alignment between the work that we do and we're endeavoring to do, and the recommendations from NAACP. They're very, very much aligned. So investment in water infrastructure, our agency does this, and we actively provide funding to local communities, and so we're currently in the process. I think this is something that can be included in the action plan. Is how can we ensure that the investments that we make in water infrastructure focus on communities of color. So enforcing water quality standards, that's one of my primary jobs and roles in the enforcement division. But we also monitor and report on water quality regularly. We have a surface water monitoring program. We also have a citizen science program and opportunity. So if anyone is interested in collaborating, whether it be as an organization or even with local schools on engaging local communities on doing some citizen science around water, contact me. I'm very interested in that. And community engagement and support, I think it's really important that all the work that I've been talking about is not just drafted and developed by a bunch of bureaucrats. I think it's really important that we genuinely get community input, and ideally it would be community led. The actions in our racial equity action plan come from each of you and others, but we're not going to expect you to do all of the mental labor here. So our process includes drafting the action plan, and then we're going to circulate it for public comment, and then we're going to respond to that, and then do some listening sessions in the community. So hopefully this is just the beginning, and we're not going anywhere. So hopefully there's many more opportunities for community engagement and support. And then emergency response plans. We do have a disaster and emergency response unit at the State Water Board, and then each region has some staff that are engaged in this work. I'm one of them. So I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of alignment with NAACP. And I wanted to quickly point out, just only a couple more slides, that there's some opportunities for engagement coming up. So in June 13th and 14th, I think that we have a board meeting, and I really think that the most interesting stuff is going to be on the 14th. We have a triennial review that is effectively a discussion around our agency's priorities for the next 3 years. There's also going to be an item that discusses our annual program work plans. Those are already on the web if you go to our website. So, but there will be an item on that. There's also going to be a tour of the Santa Rosa wastewater treatment plant. So that's exciting and interesting. In August, amongst other things, there's going to be a presentation on the Cal EPA Environmental Justice Action Grants Program. There's a lot of money coming from the feds for environmental justice, and so I think that's very relevant to this. And then in October, we have a hearing to consider penalties for discharges from the Mark West Quarry here in Santa Rosa. That has gotten a lot of publicity in the newspaper, so perhaps you've read about it. And so that's something that might be of interest to you. And then in October, there's also going to be a workshop on the draft action plan, an opportunity for anybody who's interested to provide comments and yeah, hopefully improve it. Lastly, I think this is the last thing, opportunities for engagement is the citizen science I already mentioned, and then there's the Cali PA complaint system. And the complaint system is one of the primary ways that members of the community can engage with our work, because we only have we have about 100 staff, but that's for the entire North Coast all the way to Oregon. And we cannot be the eyes and ears on the ground for anything that happens. So if you guys see something in your backyard, in your community, that relates to air, water, toxic substances, anything else that you have an environmental concern, you would go here and submit your complaint, and that creates a system where you can follow up with it. It'll send you an email and inform you of the status of our investigation, and it provides us an opportunity to look into it and see what the issue is. And so the last slide, here's my name and my contact information. Thank you again so much for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Virtual round of applause, and everyone come off mute if you can for Kason highlighting the work that's happening within the water boards. We really appreciate you spending some time. Gail, do you want to support the Q&A portion?
Oh, you're still on mute, I think.
So does anybody have any questions of Kason? We lost some people here.
You know, one thing that I'm not hearing any questions. So there was something I wanted to mention. I think it was Kirsten. I think you said that in one of your other items about finding meeting places. And I just wanted to point out that as a state agency, we have a big, really huge building with a boardroom, and most of the time it's sitting vacant. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't make that available, from time to time for free. We can't charge for it. So anyway, if there's any interest, let us know. I'd be happy to help provide a space.
Thank you. Appreciate that offer. Really appreciate that. Looking in the chat really quick. It's not really a question, but just a note from one of our members, Attila, which I think is what I would also echo and add is, I think, looking at how to continue to grow the diversity of the board and really getting those folks to help engage in community, I think would make a huge difference. If it were not for Gail, I wouldn't have known that you were local and rooted in this work. And so that's why we have you here this evening, so that more folks can tune in. And as Kason has named, really the intersection of all of our different water agencies to kind of understand how they're all working and communicating together, and to really make sure that we're aware of the entities to dial into the conversations.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if anyone's interested in going to a board meeting or just a public meeting about various issues, I'd be glad to go with that person, even be the driver, because they are kind of intimidating, and there's just a lot to know in advance before going to some of these meetings. But I'd be glad to help with that in any way. They are interested, and I think Kason has come and joined us, and he's coming and meeting us in our space. But if the regional board or any agency starts to invite communities, especially marginalized communities, then we need to show up. That's important. So it works both ways, and I'd like to help facilitate that. And the other thing, Kason, is I'd be interested in your ideas for citizen science. I don't have that many ideas myself. I just had that one that I sent you, but any
Yeah.
opportunities for that, I'd be glad to kind of be the ringleader on that and get people engaged.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that conversation. I think that ultimately I'd like to see that to be community led, but I think that that will likely be the outcome of a lot of conversations around, you know, what your interests are, and then we can talk about, okay, practically how can we make that happen. I see Attila's hands up.
Oh, yes. So just to elaborate on what I had written in the chat, is how is the board selected, appointed?
So I've never been directly involved in that, but my understanding is that nominations can be made effectively to this. They get approved by the Senate, but I guess, you know, it goes to the governor, and then after the governor's, it gets approved by the Senate. So I can follow up. I'd be happy to follow up with this group by email. There's a link on our website and frankly a web page that describes the process and, you know, points you to the application. And yeah, I would love to connect all of you to that process. So thanks for that interest.
How many people on the board, and what is the makeup of it right now?
There's currently 6 out of 7 seats full. We have when you say makeup, I think you're referring to demographically.
Yes.
Believe mostly men. Let me see. I just had that pulled up. And we have so we have 5 men, one woman, and let's see, we have 1 Latino, and we have 1 Native American, maybe 2. It's hard to know people's backgrounds fully, but Bill, we have Bill Matsubu. He works for the Blue Lake Rancheria, and then Ryan Sunberg. He's from Trinidad. I believe he's a tribal member. And so we have, we have a few white people. We have a Latino and maybe 2 tribal members.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because that is a decision-making body. I mean, you can go out and get community and get input, but to actually, you make up the agenda to go out in the community as well. So what community you go to, and that's why I think it's important to have a diversity at the table and demographically. Completely
agree.
Yeah, and to how to make that happen.
Well, I'm here to help. So as you know, I'll provide the link to the webpage, and then if any questions come up through the process, I would be happy to, you know, continue to be of assistance.
Okay.
Is there something on the website that actually shows the board members and where they are from geographically, and also what industry they're connected to?
They have the location and the name, but they do not have their industry. But I'll put this here in the chat because I just pulled it up.
It seems like I remember reading, maybe it was in a newspaper, that there was someone from fisheries, but there's also people in agriculture. And I'd be interested in knowing the industries that they're all connected to. I mean, it'd be easy enough to find that out, but that's of special interest.
Okay. Yeah, I can follow up with you on that. All right. Well, sorry, I didn't want to cut anybody off if there was a question. I was just going to say thank you.
No, it was me. I was going to say thank you for joining us this evening and for such an insightful and informative